the gifts and talents which you're given, because they're within you from childhood, and you usually exude these things, right? You show snippets of those things even as a child. And if you have elders, family, parents, elder people who are divinely guided by the Most High, even if that person doesn't consider themselves a believer. Now, we know in a perfect world and in a structure that even here at Liberty and in the body we are striving to build, you would have the proper structure. But sometimes it's somebody who didn't even yet know that they're going to have a relationship with the Most High, or they don't, or never did have a relationship with the Most High, but we know that the Most High is in control of all things. He still may have used them to rear you up and rear those skills and even push you.
Liberty, 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 liberty. Set free, free and decent, you know we gon' tread on the enemy. I will work and let him work, cause I know that he making a better me. Hallelujah, kingdom on heaven and earth, so we work cause we know that what's going on in this world. The chosen, looking for highlights, set it off, help them learn his word and what's right. What's right, what's right. That's what we're doing here, moving fair, never bend that Woody's hair. He the tip of the span, we coming after. When Liberty do what he did in Matthew.
Yo, what is going on, family? It's your brother Gabriel, and we back with another episode of the Liberty Podcast. Salute, blessings, freedom to the captives. What's going on? How y'all doing? How y'all feeling? Comment down below how y'all feeling. You know what I'm saying? How's your week going so far? What's on your mind? You know what I'm saying, in this time and state of the world? You know, what you thinking about, what y'all working on? You know what I'm saying? How are you guys using your talents for the kingdom of the Most High? You know what I'm saying? Let me know what's going on down below. I'll be remiss if I didn't ask y'all to like, comment, and subscribe, especially if you support the ministry or if you like the direction of what you see so far and you're planning on, sticking around and tuning in. You know what I'm saying? Comment down below, like, you know what I'm saying, subscribe, and stick around for the journey. And if you really don't like it, don't subscribe or unsubscribe at another late, you know what I'm saying, at a later point. But show support. Let's get this out to people who need to hear this, because there are captives who do need to be freed, and that's what we're here to do at Liberty. So today we got an interesting subject, family. And I truly believe, and I know that the gifts and talents which you're given, because they're within you from childhood, and you usually exude these things, right? You show snippets of those things even as a child. And if you have elders, family, parents, elder people who are divinely guided by the Most High, even if that person doesn't consider themselves a believer. Now, we know in a perfect world and in a structure that even here at Liberty and in the body we are striving to build, you would have the proper structure. But sometimes it's somebody who didn't even yet know that they're going to have a relationship with the Most High, or they don't, or never did have a relationship with the Most High, but we know that the Most High is in control of all things. He still may have used them to rear you up and rear those skills and even push you. And so I believe that the Father never makes mistakes, number one, but number two, he's very intentional, and we do ourselves a disservice, and we don't give him his due glory if we don't begin to understand the sovereignty of the Father, that even if something seemed like it was by the hand of man, the Father had his word and his spirit over it, making those things happen. And so with that said, again, if y'all look at some of the earlier videos on the channel, or if you guys have spoken to me, you know what I'm saying, in the background, you know that I grew up playing basketball. It was actually a major part of my life for a lot of my youth, and it's funny because now these gifts and talents are actually being used to bring people to the Father, right? I've told those stories before. It is weird in a way, because a lot of times our people, you know what I'm saying, when we're talking about according to the flesh, right, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob right now in this modern world are attracted to entertainment and sports. And I don't really like the word entertainment, because we're not entertainers, but essentially they're looking to be entertained, and so they look to those things as avenues to, amuse themselves, I guess, would not really amuse, but essentially to gain pleasure, and entertain themselves. Again, that's the word that I'm using right now. And so with that said, the scripture does say shine your light. You know, I don't always hoop. I don't always get a chance to hoop anymore. But it's funny. Somehow, every time we go, people ask, yo, what's your IG, bro? Like, you know what I'm saying? Let me get your contact, you know, so we could play. And it's funny because I didn't always have this mindset, right? There was a time where I was a lot more aggressive and hard on people. And there is a time for controlled aggression, yes. But I also understand the power of speaking to someone and speaking life to them, even on the court. And cats really like playing with me now. You know what I'm saying? And so now it's like, yo, let me get your IG, bro. And then some see and they don't ever hit me again because they see what my page is about. And then some of them, they stick around. You know what I'm saying? They rock with me, even if that's not the lane they're working in currently, but they stick around. And that's all I can ask the Father for is that, Father, thank you for letting me plant the seed. May somebody else be able to water it. And if it be your will, may this soul, you know what I'm saying, eventually receive your increase which you give. So I say that to say this. Going back to elders rearing your skill, right? I tell this story. I don't know if I told it before in here, but I'll do this before we get into the subject of today. I desired to play ball watching my pops hoop. You know what I'm saying? He took me to the park one time, and I don't remember much, but all I know is they was running up and down. I was 4, so my attention span was short. But he went up, and he went up for a tip dunk. Somebody jumped with him, and they fell. But it was just to me as a 4-year-old, and my dad was real, you know what I'm saying, real athletic, real, you know, he's a beast. You know what I'm saying? So when he went up, I'm like, yo. And it's cool when everybody else doing it, but when it's your pops, you're like, yo, that's wild. Like, I want to do that, you know? So that's the first memory I have in my mind of wanting to hoop. Now, you say, yo, what this got to do with what we represent here? But this goes back to people rearing it. And ever since then, like, he saw my love and he trained me. He's the one. If y'all see me play, you know, I was all right, if you know what I mean. But the things I'll never forget when I was trying to hoop in whatever year, that was a big goal of mine. But one of the things I'll never forget is the moments we had. You know what I'm saying? Him coaching me, him this and that. And even when that's over now, there's things that I'm looking forward in my future. You know what I'm saying? Most high when I have children, etc. There's just things that I'm never going to forget. And I learned. He taught me lessons bigger than hoop. Right? There was times where I wanted to win and he didn't throw the game or lose on purpose, but he was never going to sacrifice his integrity to win the game. And those are things that I still remember to this day and I carry in ministry and other things. And when I play with other people, I try. Sometimes I get so competitive that it low-key hits the back burners. I'm not boasting in that, but it's the truth. There are a few times where I kind of forget, but for the most part now, I'm ministering on the court before I'm even hooping. And that's real talk. So today we're going to talk about, I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with the ball world and the hoop world. And I'm only talking about this because it's something that our people deal with and people in general really deal with in the first place. And the youth is watching these people as the role models and we're thinking it's okay, right? And so I don't know how many of y'all have seen, it's been unfortunately friction between Michael Jordan, you know, Scottie Pippen and some of his other teammates that have been going on for several reasons. Some of them we're not going to be getting into today, and it is unfortunate. And I know that even our culture likes to make jokes on it, and that's not to say that, you know, I have myself laugh, but we know that we're not supposed to look and laugh at another man's calamity or another man's downfall. And so on a serious note, I'm going, the topic of today or today's video is, does the younger generation have it more right than the older generation in terms of basketball and the mindset that's now being developed, right? And if y'all know, you know what I'm saying, a lot of y'all who watch probably consider me a youngin' unless you're around my age, then you know whatever. But there's a great debate really on who is the greatest player of all time, and part of it is based on preference and the mindset that the old school have versus the younger. Now, I told y'all, my father raised me, right? And so he put me on onto all the old school, and by the time I kind of grew up in the YouTube age, if anybody, you know what I'm saying, would ask him, you would know that I rock with the old school more than I do. I don't even watch hoop anymore for multiple reasons. But when I first started giving it up, is because I'm like, yo, what I caught the tail end of and what, you know, I was taught was how the game was to be played. That's missing, and I don't really rock with that. Among other things, right? As I grew and developed in this, you know, you start to realize, man, it's a lot of vanity when we really could and should be doing others. And we're going to have another episode. This is going to be part 2 for those of us who have dedicated a lot of our life to sports. Are we actually reaping the fruit of our labors, most of us? And I have a brother who said he's going to come on. And I'm not only am I not against sports in their proper context, but I believe that if you are doing it for the glory of the Father, there's a lot of good things that can come out of it. But that's for another episode. We got that one coming, and it's just reminding me of that. So stay tuned for that, right? But the mindset that's now being cultivated in sports is something that many would categorize as soft, right? As weak, right? Some people would even go as far to say some of the stuff is effeminate. Some people would go as far to say that, right? And so again, y'all probably looking like, we know which side he's on. But for those of you who don't know me, I grew up watching the old highlights. Again, YouTube was just getting prominent, so I had access to all of that. I took more from the old school cast, from Jordan, Drexler, you know what I'm saying, Magic, Kareem. I got a sky hook. If you ask my little bro as a point guard, I got a sky hook, right? Wilkins, I mean, you could name any of them, you know what I'm saying? And even going back a little before that, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, and that crew. And then when you get to the Tracy McGrady's, the T-Max, the Vince Carters, the Steve Francis, Allen Iverson, Kobe, obviously, Grant Hill, it goes on and on. Ray Allen in his prime, it goes on and on and on. The young cats, really the generation that developed as a result of watching Mike, right? And so that's really my bread and butter. That's my cheddar cheese, or it was, right? I don't really dedicate as much time to those things anymore. And so now you have a younger generation who the narrative, at least, and that's not really the point of today, but the narrative is that the older generation wasn't really giving dap before the game. They wasn't really eating dinner. And we can go into some of the stories, at another point, whatever. But the story is, even if that was happening, we shake hand, whatever. But when we get on the court, I'm treating you like I don't know you. Right? That's how it was. Like, it's cutthroat. Right? I got to get it. It's me or you. And we know that the NBA is, I don't want to give a false percentage, but it's predominantly black. And NFL is I believe, is close to 70%, they say the statistics are. So we see that the owners, they don't have this problem. If owners really have any type of beef, it's very few of them that beef with one another. Like they say Mark Cuban, for example, is kind of an outlier. Like nobody really rocks with him, but they also say he's like a player's owner, right? But for the most part, the owners don't have these beefs. Sometimes you watch NBA trades and you go, why did he trade this for that? But you don't know that they got 15 other businesses that they say, yeah, we'll trade this and I'll give you the good deal on this. But in this industry, let me open this door for me. You know what I'm saying? They, for the most part, can get along. And even if it isn't, you don't see them publicly destroying one another, which is what's happening with Michael Jordan and a lot of his ex-teammates. Some of them have stayed out of the way, but actually some of his most prominent teammates, some of his best teammates are the ones who are trying to come at him. Is this a result of that mindset which we have perpetuated? And if so, what example are we setting for people my age, my peers and my counterparts, and even the younger ones? Right? What are we teaching them about even when we raise them in the game? Draymond Green, who has had to go through a lot of different humblings, is now taking, I wouldn't even say a softer approach, but he's definitely being more politically correct about what he says and how he says it. And he was on a podcast the other day, I was listening to him, and he said he used to have to talk trash to others to get himself going. He said, growing up, if we hooping, if you're not talking, you're not even really playing for real. And we know that the talk gets disrespectful, it gets greasy, it gets, you know what I'm saying? It's stuff that said that it's like, could really get somebody hurt for real. But we normalize it, so then we also normalize disrespect. All in the name of the game. This is where I say, this vanity of a game, if you're not using it for the glory of the Father, where are we going with it? You know what I'm saying? Now, it's a reality that, hey, it's not to judge, because, listen, I've done my fair share of talking and whatever, too. Right? That's the culture that you grow up in, is you got to be a dog to get it. And we could, man, there's so many different angles we could take on it. You know what I'm saying? Why we call something? We know the characteristics of a dog. But then we also know the Hebraic characteristics of a dog. And then we know the characteristics of a lion, which will take down, you know what I'm saying? A dog is light work for a lion. But there's a nobility there with it that we don't necessarily carry ourselves with. We're not going to go in that today. But Draymond said, as I've gotten older and more mature, I realized I don't got to talk to these men like that for me to get myself going. And the only reason he says now that he really talks is if you come in at him. Now we could take it another step and say, well, what are we really commanded to do? But with maturity, you see most of these men, most of them will sit back and be like, man, I wish I never did this. I wish I never said this. I wish I could have got this back. I wish I could have taken this back. Even if, like Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas, they made up, right? Because they were like brothers. Isaiah Thomas was like a little brother to Magic. But when they went to the finals, Magic said to prove to his team, who he wasn't really tight with them like that, but because he was drafted there, now he's claiming a team and people that he's not even as close with as Isaiah, who was considered a little brother to him. He said, well, I had to prove to these guys that, yo, there's no bias there, so I gotta hit them. Knock them out the air. And from that point, their relationship was soured until a few years ago. And finally, when they apologized, two grown men were crying. Which I don't agree with the culture that laughs at, you know what I'm saying, men, particularly black men, for crying. But it shows you how much emotion was pent up, and they were able to forgive and reconcile. And for the body of Christ, we got to ask ourselves, if worldly men are doing these things, it's not to judge, but if we're supposed to be the example because someone in us has changed us, Christ says, listen, there's certain things that you do, you just barely trying to do it, but the people in the world do that. What are we talking about? And so if they're able to do that, and you got the generation younger looking at them going, man, we needed this inner healing. I just made up with this dude. You know what I'm saying? I just forgave this dude even if he ain't want to forgive me. Or for their examples, how much more so should the king that's in heaven influence the earth? It's his earth. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. But the culture that we're creating right now, this climate that we've created, particularly as the people that run media, that run the industries, what I mean by that is in terms of influence, not in terms of finances and dominion, but in terms of who's really running the influence, we got that. What are we setting for a future for those to come? And again, that's not to say that Magic didn't have cordial or even cool or even solid relationships with some of the guys on his team. But now you're claiming a team owned by another man. You're claiming a block owned by another man. You're claiming a country owned by another man. And you don't have no dominion, which was what you were commanded to do. You were commanded to get higher and higher, even in the lands of your captivity, for the glory of the Father. That the Gentiles could look to you and say, yeah, the Most High is real. But instead, I mean, yeah, you got 20 million. You can stun on your community. But the circles you walking around, you got people with 10, 20, 100 times what you making. So that ain't going to impress them. Yeah, they might want to walk in public with you because your face might be more popular, and that's people striving for fame. But at the end of the day, behind the closed doors, they really moving everything. And so even bigger than that, now what are you teaching the generation that comes after you on how to handle or even how to come up? That's the old generation. And again, not only just in the league, because remember, it was a different time. They had to do what they had to do, but is it appropriate for today? And the way that the younger brothers is moving now, should the older generation be criticizing them, or should they come up behind them in genuine? Because now what we also have is a lot of the criticism is not even out of genuine love. Some of it may be, I don't know the man's heart, but a lot of it is they have to keep their narrative and their image alive at the detriment or at the behest of the youngest who are coming up behind them. And that's why there's a disconnect. And again, everything is mirroring what we got for real. Because they're coming from the same communities we came from, and they're just doing it on a bigger scale with more money. So what are we teaching the new generation about how we handle these situations, or even how we should treat each other coming up? So now I told you the narrative with the older generation, but the narrative with the younger generation is, hey, everybody grew up playing AAU. You know what I'm saying? For those of you who don't know, that's the Amateur Athletic Union, right? It's basically a nationwide, I would say almost like a federation or like a union, like it says, where if you get big enough, you'll play interstate to state, playing with and against some of the best players in the country. And the narrative is, hey, these kids met each other at 12, 15, 16, where these NBA players were meeting one another at 22 when they got to the league, or 20 when they got, or 18 when they got to college, and then some of them didn't meet each other until they got to the league. There was no TV at a certain point, right? And even when the TV developed, it was only certain games on, and it's only when there was a large boost in ratings, which we carried on our backs. You shall serve in the land of your captivity, but you shall not get higher. That eventually, now you can go on the internet and look up anybody and be like, oh, that's who that is. So now these younger guys, they develop a brotherhood because, hey, they're the only ones who can relate to one another. Out of all the communities where they came from, it's a small brotherhood that they can relate to. They're like, hey, what's going on, bro? And some people would say, hey, you can see that on the court, though. They're not giving it each other's best effort. They're not trying to kill each other, metaphorically. But dudes who was friends was really still trying to hurt each other sometimes. Maybe not injure them for their career, but they was trying to hurt you before they was going to let you make them look dumb. And so nowadays, that don't really exist. Like, for the most part, you let somebody go, they got the layup, hey, take it, bro. Another thing is like, hey, brothers is collaborating, teaming up. Yeah, they got business deals, which, again, I don't want to speak for everything. Maybe they was doing commercials or whatever. But nowadays, brothers is really coming together and putting real business deals together. And they're like, hey, shoot, we already tight. Our kids already like cousins. Let's go play together. Today is not, I'm not here to make the argument of, in terms of the basketball hooping, which one is more fun to watch, which one is better. That's not the point of today. But the point is, how is that affecting people's actual lives outside of that? At the end of the Last Dance documentary, Michael Jordan did a 10-part series reviewing the last season that he won an NBA championship. And really, in order to do that, they had to tell the whole story of his career and other key parts. He ends up crying towards the end of it, and he says, listen, you guys know the method which I took to try to win. If you don't want to play that way, don't play that way. And he's crying. Once again, people are making memes and jokes about it. But you could tell this is the first time, at least publicly, that he's vented that, hey, I'm a human too. Maybe I was a little harsh. Maybe I was, extreme. But that was the goal. And in the grand scheme of life, is an NBA championship that big? Now, you could say, listen, it brings your marketing up. It allows you to make more money for your family, blah, 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 blah. But he don't have any relationship with any of the cats he was close with before. And maybe to you that don't matter. It's like, hey, I just got to get this money. I don't care about brotherhood. Scratch that. Now, it's going to be a problem. Because even if Jordan, he's going to have his time, he's going to live his life, when it's time for him to pass down to his kids, who is his kids marrying? And that's part of the situation that's going on right now. Is his son is with the ex-wife of his teammate, of Michael Jordan's teammate. So there's no community established. There's no tribe established for the wealth, for the principles to be enforced, and for the wealth to stay in the family. By the time some of y'all watching this have kids or grandkids, will wealth even stay in Jordan's family? Now, I don't know what he's done behind the scenes to secure that wealth. But anybody who knows anything about scripture and thinks you can be an individualist, you're very greatly mistaken. Right? And quite frankly, there's no dominant power on the earth right now that, even if you don't know it, don't have tribal links. They take the formula that was given to us and they use it to their advantage while we remain in ignorance. And so Jordan don't got any of the dudes that he used to rock with. Now, when he come, everybody say hello. People are they say they're in awe of his greatness. But he don't have true brotherhood. And most of these guys don't. Now, I don't know these cats like that, right? These new dudes. But a lot of these guys, their families are close. Their brotherhood is close. And it's still shady stuff they have. This story is going to always happen. But it looks like, is there a slightly different result? Now, some people would argue, these young cats are just lazy. They're not any closer than the other dudes were. And we'll have to see when their generation gets this age, are they still that close? But you see some of these billionaires of different origins. None of these, I don't say none of these, but none of these ones that I'm speaking of in my head, even if I'm not calling names, are necessarily believers and don't even profess to be. But some of them are cultivating different results, because we talk about generational curses, but the curse has to originate from somewhere, right? A blessing, even the scripture says it, and it's just, even in a cultural, a modern cultural context, you have to be blessed by someone. A blessing doesn't just come from anywhere. It's not a blessing. In the same way, a curse, the curse has to be received and even cultivated from somewhere. And this is why the definition of good is function, because listen, a cough don't feel good for the chest when your chest is on fire, but it has a function. It's actually going to cough out and push out whatever toxins, illnesses within you. So in that context, it's good, right? But in the same time, if for whatever reason now it's excessive, right? Sometimes the body's extra pushing and the body knows what's within it. But let's just say now it's excessive. Now you're starting to have chest pain. You know what I'm saying? It feels like your lungs are on fire. Infections, inflammation, all those things can come because if it's not properly handled, now that thing is no longer good. Well, in the same way, money and wealth, you can run up a whole bag and not have family. You can run up a whole bag and have family, but your family becomes degenerate and you can't build off of that and build a tribe and pass it down to the next generation and have values and say, yeah, I grew up and we established this community that serves God. Oh, yeah. I know his daughter. I knew her father since we was 15. He raised his daughter in the way. My son, yeah. I know his reputation. Boom, they do the same thing. Now, how you think Israel went from 1 to 70 to 600,000 men in consecutive generations, and now here we are this day as the sand of the sea? You can't build and establish nothing if you're in disobedience, and that means loving your brother as you love yourself. And again, I'm not to say that the young generation is doing any better. What I'm saying is, culturally, are we even sending the right message? Because at the end of the day, every man that matures and fully becomes a man, they may be like, I didn't have this influence. But now that I'm a man, I know right from wrong. I'm going to choose right even if I ain't having, if I ain't see it. But as I believe, don't quote me, but I believe it was Frederick Douglass, I think, said it's easier to build a man from a boy than to repair a man from a broken one. And that's just facts. So what are we teaching these young dudes? Like, hey, you got a talent? One, serve the Most High with it. But two, take it as far as he allows you to go. But you don't ever got to tear down your brother for that. You stand with your brother before you do that. And guess what? A lot of y'all going to be like, yeah, that's cool and that sounds good. But when they say only one of y'all could get this bag, do you really tell this brother not to do it? Hey, I hear you. But you always got a choice. And guess what? When you get to that top, you're going to have to compromise so much to keep it that it's going to be as if you didn't have it at all, or you're going to become that which you were not when you first started. They're going to mold you into a whole different creature. That's psychological and mental bug breaking. And when God made a man, he made him to stand on kingdom business. And that's a perfect segue. So we're going to hop into our segment, G mode. I talked about it last time. I don't think I really explained it very well. Maybe I did, right? We know that G mode is God mode. We know that, and really the name of the segment is G mode with Brother Gabriel. My name is Gabriel. You know what I'm saying? A little play on something. But realistically, right, we know that, and that's the name of an angel. Angels stand on business. The Father tells them to do it, they do it. The book of Psalms says, blessed are ye his angels that excel in strength, right? The heavens are on accord. The animals are on accord. Man is the only one who's out here looking lost. So G mode is a reminder every podcast on a specific section and segment that we could do better, that we need to be standing on business. We're soldiers for the Most High. So we need to get on G mode with Brother Gabriel. And today that G mode is love your brother. Don't compromise. No matter what they offering you, it ain't going to be worth it. Stand on kingdom business. Christ did it. The devil himself came in and came to tempt him after fasting 40 days. And Christ ain't compromised. So my brother, my sister, they're going to offer you something. And you know deep down in your spirit, because it's always going to be tricky, that ain't the way to go. The Most High has the bigger blessing. And it's not always going to be financial. You may lose a bag, but you ain't really lose the bag because it was never yours to get anyways. What is it for a man to gain the whole world and to lose his soul? So stand on business, stand on your principles, and we're going to talk about this for another podcast episode. But the book of Jeremiah says, even in the land of captivity, plant vineyards, build houses, marry your sons and daughters. That means even in captivity, you not only have permission, but authority. It's an expectation that you go and do well, even when you have people who are higher up than you, because God uses the foolish to confound the wise, and the weak to defeat and confound the strong. So let the weak say, I'm strong. Liberty to the captives, G mode. And so with that said, family, don't compromise. We've all had opportunities. I know people who were 2 steps away from getting into the music industry. They grew up with some of the most famous artists you know, interacted with them, have the same skill set, some better or some different. But because they didn't, I'm able to stand here before you and have a greater impact for the kingdom with talents that the industry would fiend for. But that's how it should be. We shouldn't be desiring. This is another episode coming, family, talking about the industry. I really got 2 different parts for those. They should be wanting that. Hashem should want you, but know that he can't have you. Because if Christ caved in, all of Israel and all of the whole world subsequently would have no hope for salvation. Who's going to pay if you cave in? Who's going to be put under the curse if you cave in? Remain in the freedom which we've been given. And so we know all the outlandish stories that we've heard about this person compromising and doing this and doing that, compromising their manhood, compromising their modesty and their womanhood. But it don't always get that big, and it certainly don't always start that big. They start doing this. Will you do this? Will you do that? Will you diss your brother? You don't see these other people doing that. You don't see them doing that. And they've established a tribe, a clan, a society that they back one another, that they don't ever have to do it. They don't have to do it. And for the few who do it, that clan now considers them degenerates. We don't claim him because he's not following the code and the conduct in which we operate. Well, in the same way, the body Messiah had code and conduct. Made up of Israelites first and Gentiles that came in. Yo, we not moving like this, son. We got to establish those things, but we don't even know what they are. That's again for another day. But when we look at this new generation, so many players are being called soft. Some brothers are like, yo, I don't know if y'all knew, but during the year that the spread of illness, we're going to use that, went down in 2019, 2020, the NBA is still money hungry. First of all, they duked everybody by acting like they was about social justice. You know what I'm saying? Mad ads, mad this and that. And so it was over, everyone was quiet and it was done with. And they were like, nah, we could still play. It was like, yo, I don't even want to play. We not gonna play. And they were like, nah, man, we gotta still play, but we gonna make sure we support y'all cause. And they made sure not to step on anybody's toes and offend nobody. That's not even the point. It's not for them to stand up for us. But nonetheless, they did it. They went through with it. And certain people were like, nah, I'm out. They didn't give as much effort. Maybe they didn't have as much effort to give, but they're like, yeah, I'm not going to stay here and grind myself to death and mentally harm myself to a point where I can't do this. And some people are looking like, yo, y'all saw this great one and this great one and this great one. He would have done it. And they're like, I'm not going to risk my mental health. I'm not going to not be there for my family and put myself in a dark space to the point where I can't even be a father and a husband and a brother to my people, which some of the older generation had to go through. Now, I would say just the same, also coming through and be like, yeah, I'm greater than this one and this one and this one that came before me. That's not our structure and our code either, to boast ourselves on our elders. And I already spoke about how a lot of time the old generation, when we talk about the NBA circle, and again, these cats is looking up to these dudes, even grown men looking up to them and saying, oh yeah, he did it, we're going to follow that conduct. They're like, yeah, he's not as good as us because he ain't do this, he ain't have to go through that. They're all still fiending for the attention and the adulation of the people, and unfortunately, the older generation didn't even get paid what they were worth, so they still trying to get dough. They still trying to get bread. So if they let people know how great they were, they stay relevant in the eyes of the people. They get money, they get to go on shows, and people recognize them and maybe make a move for another at the expense of their brother. Imagine if these cats said, nah, squash this. Yo, let's move together. And even better if they came into repentance and said, let's do this under the Most High through his son. But that's completely lacking. And it takes only a remnant, but it takes the Most High breaking down. That's why you see some cats, whether it's a blown knee or I can't think of any specific ones, but maybe there are some success stories of people who had long, even great careers, and maybe they repented. But even then, they got to lose something. They got to give something up to realize that they need Messiah. Otherwise, they wouldn't have. You got to give something up. He told the rich man, give up your riches. Right? He told the ill man, as crazy as this scene, and some of y'all be like, hey, I'll trade sickness before I trade that. But a lot of us are spiritually and physically and mentally sick. And when somebody tells you stop doing this, this is causing or contributing to your sickness, we ain't trying to hear them. We're not trying to hear them. We make excuses. Another podcast episode coming. During a time of war, everybody's ready to make whatever sacrifice is needed. But we don't understand we're at war right now. Episode coming later. So you have to tell the sick man, yo, do you even want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? If you do, let it be according to your faith. However much you believe, because I ain't got a limit. However much you believe I can do it. So you got to give up something to come to Messiah, because you got to learn that you're empty, even with all the things that you think you have. So this older generation is bearing down on the younger. The young ones are looking, and a lot of them are not paying homage and respect to those that came before them. And this happened in Israel in the Bible. The older generation was not leading properly, and the Most High condemned them for it. He said, if y'all don't repent, you're going to be in trouble. The younger generation not respecting the elders, says babes will rule over you. It says women will rule over you. Because you was abusing the women, and I hate that. There's dysfunction all over the place. It don't matter how much money we get, we still not escaping all these other curses. So do we have a problem with the culture in the way that we are raising ourselves? Because the generation before us taught that. And we go back as far as when we was in them shackles and chains. Hey, you lighter, you could get this. Oh, you woman, you could get this. Oh, you a man. Oh, sisters, y'all don't know that the man is oppressing you? Oh, man, y'all don't know that these women don't really love you like that? They disrespectful and they all want to hurt you and emasculate you? Oh, youngins, them OGs can't teach you nothing. Come over here, we'll put you on. Yeah, my OG never put me on here. Yo, OGs, these young kids don't respect you. Give up on them. They ain't got no hope. Don't try to mentor them no more. Yo, y'all three men, y'all big and strong, but only one of y'all can get this. So y'all gonna fight it out to see which one of y'all actually even get to live. The other two, I'm gonna castrate or kill. Oh, you in the corporate structure. Yeah, it's only gonna be. And a lot of this stuff just becomes unsaid to the point where you get in a corporate setting and you looking at this brother like he my competition amongst everybody else who there. He my competition. Instead of making all things common, even your heart and being of one consent. That's a promise. We got to look at the things that the Father said are going to happen when we're punished and stop normalizing them as, oh, that's part of life. And then look at the thing that he said, yo, when you're restored, this is how you're going to look. Imagine walking around with a twisted knee, a bruised face, hair falling out, and you think that's normal. And you read the health book and it says, no, normal human is supposed to have this, blah, 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 blah. You're going to be like, oh, so I'm a walking symbol of not being healthy. There's something wrong. No matter how much dough, how much bread we get, no matter how much our families get to go to these good schools and whatever, things are still perpetuating themselves. So it's the culture that we perpetuated that we have held on, because the second we say, nah, it stops, yeah, you're going to go to war, but you're already at war. That's part of the G mode message that we have for today. You already at war. So you got to move on heavenly principles, which do not shift and change. The sun doesn't change its course. The moon don't change its course. The angels don't disobey. The bear going to do what the bear was made to do and not switch up. You already at war. Well, I don't want it to escalate to the next level. Well, to have that fear when the Father says, if I'm with you, I will go before you in battle, means that you know that you're not in right standing with the Father. That means you got to get yourself right. It's the only way the captives can be freed, if you're not holding yourself under bondage. And so now you have three dudes going to try to I don't know their full agenda. They're being very vague about it, but from what the looks of it, they are going to expose and talk about, maybe not Jordan personally, maybe Jordan personally, whatever, and what he's done and how he's not so great and blah, blah, blah. And Jordan is living his best life. He's not really paying them no attention. But at the end of the day, he's admitted that he's paying now for what he did back then. And to him, he considers it worth it. But because, remember, a lot of these athletes, their story starts with insecurity and is rooted in insecurity. And remember, if the seed is planted in the root is what the root is, you got to uproot that tree to stop. Jordan got his great sense of competitiveness, which we admire. Most people admire. And I say we, culture admires. He said because growing up, his father would, even though he did it to motivate him, it hurt him. He would tell him his older brother was better than him and that he would never be nothing, even if it was sarcastically. And he said from that moment on, he had an insane level of competition, but it was rooted in something that was not altogether healthy. And that's most of these guys. It pushed them to greatness, but at what cost? Yeah, children, obey your father and mother, and that's not an option, it's command. But also, parents, do not provoke your children to wrath. This is the imbalance that we're talking about. And so from then on, every level he got to, high school, college, NBA, he said, yo, y'all gonna play on this team. I'm gonna drive you to the end of the world like I'm driving myself to the end of the world. Because the same thing that rooted me then, even if he didn't always think of that, that's what blossomed him into that state of mind. And Kobe and other cats grew up admiring that. Players before him probably had, and some of them have talked about, similar origin stories. And quite frankly, even if it wasn't that, being in survival mode, once you get to a state of more peace, you no longer can keep the same survival skills, military skills in a civilian setting. This is why you see actual military men have to reform. And some do so better than others. Because it's tough. So when you're at war all the time, when you get a little bit of reprieve, even if it isn't really reprieve, even the sense thereof, you now have to unlearn and relearn or keep acting that way, and you continue to drive people in a way that they may not so much appreciate, which is essentially what happened. And now his teammates are like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of things on their side that they didn't do right. But this culture now seems to be changing where guys are like, nah, I'm not going to beef. I'm not going to disrespect. Kevin Garnett said something one time disrespectful about Carmelo's wife, and he just said, yo, I forgave him. Listen, I'm not the type of guy that goes and says, hey, these celebrities can never repent. I'm also not the same guy that just believes anybody just because they say it, right? You should know about their fruit. But you see a narrative, even if it's for their own, because we talk about there's carnal and secular and worldly solutions that seem close to the scriptures, but it's really not. But you see men saying, yo, I forgave him. Even if we're not tight and we're not close, but I don't hold no hate in my heart for you no more. I forgive you. And some of them are getting over things that is like, yo, it's crazy. Magic and Isaiah did it. Right now they're trying to call for Magic to try to mend the relationship between Jordan and Isaiah. Over basketball. Over a game of a round ball. And so that game took men far. And quite frankly, if we do it right, we can move in certain spaces without compromising. Now, how far? Don't get me wrong, and we're going to talk about this on the upcoming episode. How far can you truly go? We got to be real with ourselves. But no man moved in the industry without, first of all, the Most High, even biblically. And most times he had some sort of tribe with him, or the Most High gave him favor with those people. Most of us don't got favor going to these industries. They trying to snake us and snare us before we even step in there. And they playing that snake's hand. They word as smooth as butter. But in their heart is a dagger waiting to harm us. And it don't matter how much warfare we seen. It don't matter how strong we are. How long can you survive being on a survival mode all the time? Even a lion who, if y'all know, they'll go in the midst of 40 hyenas. As an hour goes by, if that interaction still going on, they starting to get anxious like, yo, how long can I keep this up without backup? Yeah, I could charge them, but hey, I need a brother to stand by me. So if the Most High not for you in the first place, it's going to be tough. But then two, now imagine if we was moving as a tribe in these industries. A brother knows business. You can't get me on that. You got your spiritual elders like, yo, we're not going to compromise on that, and we don't need to, because we got the funds here to push you where you need to go, and you're not ever going to do it for your glory, but for the Most High. This is where we could be family. And I just want to play my part in that at Liberty. But we're going to need the tribe to come together. And so this is where it seems like people are starting to shift their mind. Like, even if it's for their own sake, it's not worth it, bro. I'm not going to push my mental health beyond where I can go for a chip. That's a piece of metal. It may be an expensive one, but the culture that says you need 6 wins to be validated, I'm not even really looking for these cats' validation like that. And part of it is because of you guys, we get paid enough to really not worry about that. But then on the other end, I'm grateful, but that don't mean I'm going to continue to push myself over the edge. I'm not going to do it. I want peace. I want rest. I want contentment. That's their mindset. That's the thing that they're saying. And these cats are like, y'all got it too good. If I had your thing with my drive, if I had y'all amount of money with my drive, it would be over with. So we can't be envying our brother. The scripture says that. We can't be, you know what I'm saying, disrespecting those who came before us, and we should be looking how to collab. Will this reach any of those guys? I don't know, and I don't want to say I don't care because I know that the Most High doesn't want any man to perish. It may be hard to reach those with money, just as it is hard for a rich man to come into the aisle. It's harder for a man to get into the aisle of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. But that don't mean it can't happen. But more importantly, for the generations that are coming up, we can't teach them in the types of culture. It's you or them. Hey, you good? I'm good. Let's go. Let's both go out there. David and Jonathan grew up. They was favored. They were both mighty men. Jonathan, Saul's son, the son of the king, took him and his armor bearer, and they fought 18-on-2 and beat him. One, because the Most High was with them. That's the main point. But Saul's like, Jonathan, are you crazy? This man, if he's not dead, you keep helping him escape me trying to kill him. But if he's not dead, you'll never be king. And Jonathan is like, nah. This man loves the Most High. I love the Most High. He loved me. I love him. Brotherhood. That's when masculine brotherhood was up there too. And yet they was able to show affection. Brotherly love. And those strong bonds, even though Jonathan ended up following his father unto death. But David had favor on Jonathan's seed. I believe it was Jonathan's seed. It was Saul's seed, definitely. I think it might have been Jonathan's son. Because of the favor and mercy that they showed to one another. He said, I'm not going to kill this brother for this opportunity. And this is when Israel was sovereign. So here's so much more so when we're being oppressed by both the spiritual powers and those who are being used by them and in cahoots with them, as we should be in collaboration with the Most High and his son and being used by them. How much more so should we be on that type of time? How much more so we be like, nah, if his portion is being king, even though my father was king, I'm gonna play my role excellently. Prophet Samuel, you need Prophet Samuel to advise David. David's mighty men who are going to uphold him and give him strength in time where he was weak. Men who are going to worship with him. Abigail, a wise woman who ended up becoming David's wife. You need the whole clan together, family. We got to tribe up. That means first being of one heart. And we have the king who will all end up essentially supposed to be clones of and be remade into his image. And now we all end up going to be like that. And the whole body like that, that's a body who's going to rule the world. Prophetically, the scriptures say that. We's busy trying to rule a Jordan brand or billion-dollar empire. But the whole earth will be given to the meek. Those meek were once captives who were now liberated through the spiritual liberation of the Messiah, free indeed. And so, let me know what y'all think, family. I really want to know what y'all think. I want to hear from the elders. I want to hear from the youngins. Where do we go too far? Where do we make room for opportunities? Again, Moses grew up understanding and learning all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Now, when he was in the wilderness, it doesn't say he was tapping into all of it, but there were certain resources he had. Joseph went into Egypt and dominated and ruled and ended up being a vessel there and helped half of the known world. Or I don't want to say half, it wasn't a literal 50%, but a lot of the known world at that time, major empires and people came unto him. It got to the point when the Father was developing this, and if we walked in his perfection, it would have been perfected, which we'll get there eventually with Christ. But eventually, that same people who came from Moses and David and Joseph, serving in other people's kingdoms, eventually he gave them their own kingdom with a bright shining light in the world at that time, David and his son Solomon. And they established dominion and showed us what could we have if we just build the family, because that was what Israel was, a family who came together and expanded and allowed, because not just allowed, but they were commanded by the Most High to allow other nations to come in and help build and contribute their parts and their gifts according to the Spirit. And we don't preach no hate here. We don't preach no discrimination. We preach the scriptures, which is everyone has their portion, the Israel first and the Gentile, and this is what we're going to do. But we got to get our stuff together, Israel. We got called to walk this walk, and therefore we can't just be worried about $1 million bag and $1 billion bag. Somebody said the other day, I'm not gonna lie, it's true. We gotta learn how to collaborate more, and that doesn't mean, hey, there's a balance, right? Because if you know you're being called to do something, play your part, but also know that, hey, the Father may also call you to say, build with this brother in certain ways. You gotta prove him. We talked about all those things, but nonetheless, what these people do is, hey, I got funds. You already got the understanding of how to have a media company. I'm not gonna go start my own media company where I don't have the expertise. I'm not gonna pay somebody else. Yo, let's just do this together. And we respect each other's expertise and blah, 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 blah. And the one who rules in the midst of us is the Messiah. And whoever is speaking that at that time, based on the wisdom and understanding and not being emotional, that's what we got to go with. Wise counsel, brotherhood. These are the things that we got to build in family, behind the scenes. I know I've been absent. I'm not promising anything. But according to the Most High's will, we got to build. The kingdom is at hand and it is established. So please comment down below. Let me know what y'all think. Let me know what y'all think about this, about these men being so hurt or maybe being desperate for money. People are saying it could be both, that they're going to tear down another brother, and that brother who they felt treated them wrong, and there's footage of him demeaning and disrespecting and really, again, demoralizing these men, disrespecting them sometimes, or kind of bossing around, dogging them in front of their families. And that's when I started to transform, because I still do hold to the older generation had a lot of toughness and mentality that we need. But at the same time, that toughness got to be coupled with love and mercy. And hey, some of this stuff really ain't never going to be that serious. Now, this younger generation loves to use that. It ain't that serious. But some of this stuff really is never that serious. And if you truly understand the value and magnitude of things, you'll understand, yeah, it may be kind of big. And you should always strive for excellency in what you do. But it ain't that serious, especially if you have to compromise. And that's where we're at. So a lot of these younger guys now, again, I don't agree with them then trying to say, hey, I'm still the greatest because of this and that and the other. And I do indulge in the conversation sometimes just being fully transparent. But in the grand scheme of things, even that's not that big of a deal. But in the midst of that, imagine if these guys said, yo, now remember, it's the media. It's even brothers. When I say that, brother, men according to the flesh who have, this particular persuasion and origin, both black and white, who are on the media saying, nah, this is, what I'm saying, y'all are soft too. The media, we're going to talk about this in another podcast episode, has such a persuasion to move and influence. We're going to talk about that, the minds of the masses. And so when guys say, hey, I'm not really even tripping off that, I'm not going to kill myself for a ring. As some men literally may go suicidal or get depression because of a piece of metal. Men who maybe never get that far, but they lose their high school career and they don't even know themselves. They have to re-identify themselves or lose themselves forever to substances and whatever else. When these guys say that, they're like, I ain't even really tripping. I'm enjoying my career. I'm blessed. Yo, y'all saw. And guess what? Then everyone starts taking sides. That's another podcast episode. That's a great tactical control. Giving two false sides. Neither of them are right, but saying these are the only two options. Debate them. Meanwhile, the truth is shining bright, but nobody's seeing it because everyone's scrambling in darkness. So many episodes coming. That's going to be fire, family. But if we could, with strength and power, say, yeah, bro, I'm blessed. This is a gift of mine. And that's another thing. The public thinks that these guys owe us something. They owe us our best play. I pay tickets, and you do. But guess what? All y'all making those comments, most of y'all get paid to do a job, and y'all don't always give your best effort. And I'm not advocating for that. But because they make more with their gift doesn't mean they owe you anything. That's another thing. We hold these guys to think like, oh, they owe it to us because the Father blessed them with this. They owe you specifically. Nah, bro. So the media perpetuates it, and now they're like, well, then why am I not the greatest? And maybe they would say it either way. But some of them are like, yo, I'm cool on that, bro. I'm just living life. Like a Russell Westbrook now. He's reinvented himself. He's like, yo, it's bigger than ball. Because Cass is disrespecting his name and his family and saying outrageous stuff. Like, yeah, I'm cool on that, bro. Known for being the most intense. And he still plays with intensity. But now, hey, I'm cool on that. So with that, now we can look at these things from the world because the younger generation is looking at us. We should have far more influence than any basketball player, any football player, any celebrity, any artist, any of those things. And we are going to have that. And it starts now. It starts with this. It starts with these combos. It starts with reaching the youth and changing and training their minds to say you could be excellent and still never want to see no harm on or off the court for your brother. You could give him your best and you give him your best. And that's one of the cool things when I really started learning that. I'm gonna wrap it up, family, because I've been going for a little bit. We gotta wrap this up. But when I went to the park and I started hooping in the summer, I started to realize, yo, I can all love and the brother's he's going back, but he's just messing with me, yo, because my handles really never go away, but it takes me some time to get my jumper back. So the dude yelling, yo, he can't shoot. And I don't take that as offensive in any context. He's trying to bait me into shooting because he knows if I go to the basket, he ain't going to guard me. He can't shoot. So I keep shooting, and I go to the rim, and I started hitting jumpers. By the end of the game, it was all love. We give that bro hug, and it was cool, and the energy was beautiful. I don't know what that man's belief is. Now, I wish, and I hope that one day, if not, he hasn't already heard it, that I could give him the gospel, the good news, right? In the Besorah in Hebrew. But even that switches the energy. And every time I go there's been some cats threatening to pull guns at that same park because people are coming with wrong energy. But when I come with the peace, people are arguing. I try my best to shine the light even with just a little bit and keep the energy lighter. And next thing you know, cats start talking. Brothers is having conversations now. And little by little, there's a chance to give the word. Wherever you are, shine that light. So at the end of the day, I think that there's definitely positive from the older generation, positive from the younger generation, negative from the older generation, negative from the younger generation. But these are the people who are influencing our families, our children, our elders. And we got to do better of controlling and switching the narrative to understand it's bigger than all these things. You can strive for excellence and push yourself, and that's where I was going with David and Jonathan. David and Jonathan, both of them, they just did their best. David was destined to be king and have a established lineage. Who knows what Jonathan would have had, you know, if it went another way, and not to play the what if game. But we see that all throughout the scriptures. Everyone had to play their part, and you'll excel in your portion. And if you are fully giving yourself to the Father, like Abel, he's going to accept your sacrifice. Like Phineas, the father established an eternal covenant with, I think it was Phineas or his father Eleazar. In the priesthood, people don't talk about that because Eleazar or Phineas was focused on their part, which is we're not going to allow sin in the camp of God, especially after we just got in trouble for what we did. Nah, Father, he wasn't worried about nobody else. He genuinely just didn't want the Father to be upset with them again. So just do your portion. But it's tough because they're going, hey, there's only one Nike contract for y'all. There's only one Nike sponsorship. Only one of y'all going to get to bring them shoes. And ain't nobody can afford Nikes out of the two of us. So I'm sorry. But now you develop bitterness and hurt. But we're breaking barriers little by little because now we're saying, yo, y'all not going to keep making money off our name and we can't do it because we're too young and we don't know how to handle money. But guess what? When y'all passing y'all children down businesses, it ain't about how they can't handle it. So we got our gifts. And don't get me started on the intellectual side because not only in history have we made so many investments, but we still doing it today. Some of them are getting stolen. Some of them are just not getting attention because it's not cool due to the influence in the media. But don't tell me what to do with my money. If I'm bringing the money, let me handle that. And this is where the elders and the council should come in and be like, yo, don't spend this, don't do this, blah, 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 blah. But to wrap up, when we come together and say, nah, each of us deserves our worth, and y'all got to pay it to all of us. Now we got name, image, likeness contracts where everybody's getting their bag even in college. People are not tripping about leaving college early because they're getting their due money that they were earning in the back. And it's part of because the older generation has been sticking up for them. So we moving, but if it's not in Christ, it's in vain. It's going to fail even if it looks like it. The scripture says when you go into captivity, if you don't serve me, no man's going to redeem you from this. So we got to do it under the Messiah, who is the head, the leader of the tribes, the king. So the wrap up, family, let's go with what's the word. I'm not even going to lie. I didn't have a verse for this one. But the what's the word segment is to essentially summarize and wrap up what we talked about during today. And this is what we're going to do. The book of Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 1. A soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. It's simple. Quite frankly, talk to people with love and respect. People who are truly confident, secure, strong, who are mighty. You don't got to put somebody down. And even if they come a little aggressive, you can give a soft answer. It don't mean you soft. Everybody loves Mike Tyson now. Man, he's really mature. He's cool. Everybody's happy that he ain't ripping heads off like he was doing back in the day, because people still be disrespecting him, and it really bothered me, family. Like, just keeping it a buck, I don't like that. Shouldn't be doing it to nobody. But I think I see in him a lot of other people who are trying to better their lives, and people particularly and specifically try to provoke them. So everybody happy Mike is reforming. He's so wise and well-spoken and soft-spoken now. But somebody who's truly calm in their area of dominion, which the Father has given them, their portion. Even if somebody come a little off, and I work on it, I don't always do it, but this is where liberty to the captives comes. When you're no longer captive to your flesh and your own desires, when you can say, nah, this person came a little off. I've seen people, and I've learned through watching people older and wiser than me disarm people who are completely angry and disheveled, and you just, it's like turning them off with a switch with a soft answer. But a grievous answer stirs up anger. And that's what's happening now. These brothers is angry at Jordan. Jordan is angry at almost everybody he's ever interacted with. And he certainly don't have very many close brotherhoods like we're actually commanded to have. We're not supposed to forsake the assembling of one another. So learn how to have a soft answer. You don't ever got to come off as soft. But a soft answer really just means a peaceful answer, for better translation. With that, I love y'all. Please tune in for the next episode. Comment down what hit you, what resonated, your opinions on these subjects, and liberty to the captives.